Welcome to Into the Margins, where we dive into the margins to find what makes businesses profitable in order to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Glad to be here for this one. We're getting into some really fascinating territory
And
today.
really are. So consider this. There's this landmark Harvard Business School study that tracked thousands of high-potential ventures. And they found that 65% of startups fail for one very specific, entirely preventable reason.
Yeah, and it's never what people think it is.
Right. It isn't because they run out of cash. I mean, it's not because they build a bad product or even because the market shifts beneath their feet. The number one killer of new businesses is actually interpersonal conflict among the founders and the early team.
It's crazy when you actually look at the numbers.
It really is. So today we are doing a deep dive into this massive stack of data. We're talking a decade of venture capital postmortem reports, clinical psychological studies on founder isolation, and some incredibly candid internal memos from the early days of Silicon Valley.
Oh, those memos are wild to read. Just pure chaos.
Completely. And looking at all this research, one massive undeniable theme jumps out. Whether you are currently sketching out a business model on a coffee shop napkin right now, or you're acting as a seasoned CEO trying to scale a mid-market enterprise, you are facing a universal business truth.
Absolutely. It applies across the board.
The secret engine of your success, and really the primary driver of your profitability, is the ecosystem of people you surround yourself with.
It really is the ultimate competitive advantage, you know? What's so fascinating when you comb through these autopsy reports of failed companies is that human dynamics almost never show up directly on a balance sheet.
Right, like there's no line item for resentment.
Exactly. You won't find an entry on the income statement for toxic board dynamics or founder burnout. But those exact human elements absolutely dictate every single number that does make it onto that spreadsheet.
Yeah, we're going to unpack exactly how that works today. And I kind of want to anchor our deep dive with a quote that gets thrown around a lot. It was originally popularized by Jim Rohn.
Oh, I think I know the one.
Yeah, the classic, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Such a classic.
Right, and it sounds like a great, slightly cliche inspirational poster you'd see in a break room.
Yeah.
But when you actually apply it to the structural reality of building a profitable business, it completely ceases to be a platitude.
Yeah, it becomes an operational blueprint because a leader's success isn't just a byproduct of their own individual grit.
Or their raw intellect.
Right, or like how many hours they can force themselves to stay awake staring at a monitor pounding energy drinks. The modern marketplace is just far too complex for that lone genius myth to survive anymore.
It really is.
Success relies entirely on collaboration, rapid innovation, and flawless execution. So the people around you are not just background characters in your entrepreneurial journey.
They're the whole show, basically.
They actively dictate your baseline mindset, your daily motivation, and your strategic direction. I mean, if you surround yourself with people who think small and avoid risk, your business will inherently remain small.
Yeah, it has to. It's gravity.
Exactly. But if you surround yourself with people who challenge your assumptions, demand excellence, and bring totally different cognitive frameworks to the table, your business is quite literally forced to elevate just to survive the conversation.
So we are going to audit that entire ecosystem today. We're going to break down the exact roles you need to fill, from the boardroom all the way down to your personal life to ensure you are actually building a profitable, resilient venture.
Yeah, I love that, Coach.
And I think the most logical place to start this deep dive is right at the top, the founder's dilemma. Because the most critical high-stakes decision you will ever make early on is who gets to sit at the helm with you.
Oh, without a doubt. The decision to partner with a co-founder or, to take on a major lead investor who will sit on your board, that permanently sets the genetic code of your company.
And you can't really change it later, can you?
It is extraordinarily difficult and usually financially devastating to try and rewrite that code later on. When we look at the data on successful partnerships, there is a core requirement that emerges.
What is it?
It's a combination of two elements that founders consistently confuse. You must have shared values combined with complementary skills.
Okay, that immediately reminds me of entering a 3-legged race at a company picnic.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, because if you tie your right leg to your partner's right leg, meaning, you both have the exact same dominant foot, the exact same specialized skill set, and crucially, the exact same blind spots, you are going to trip over each other the moment the gun goes off.
You'll be face down in the grass in 2 seconds.
Exactly. You need someone using their left foot while you use your right. But I see founders fall into this very specific trap all the time. They partner with their college roommate or like their best friend simply because they enjoy getting a beer together.
Yeah, the buddy system is so common.
So how do we draw a hard line between a great friendship and a structurally viable business partnership?
Well, the three-legged race visualization gets right to the heart of it. It highlights that massive confusion between shared values and shared skills. Let's really break down the mechanics of why that buddy system fails.
Yeah, let's get into the mechanics.
Shared skills in a founding team is actually a massive redundancy. So let's say you are a brilliant back-end software engineer,
Okay.
and your best friend from college is also a brilliant back-end software engineer. You get along perfectly, you listen to the same podcasts, you have the same sense of humor, so you start a sauce company together.
Sounds fun so far.
Right. But within 3 months, you hit a massive wall. Who is picking up the phone to do enterprise sales?
Neither of us. We hate sales.
Exactly. Who is managing the digital marketing spend? Who is building the financial models for your seed round? You have essentially cloned yourself.
So you've doubled your engineering output, but you have completely ignored the glaring weaknesses required to actually commercialize the product.
You nailed it. And not only is it a redundancy, but cloning your skill set actually compounds your blind spots.
Because you're both looking in the exact same direction.
Yes. You both look at the business purely through the lens of product development. And neither of you recognizes that, say, your customer acquisition cost is bleeding you dry.
Because neither of you knows how to look for that.
Nice. You do not need another you. What you need are shared values. Values are the bedrock upon which completely different skills operate.
So when we talk about shared values, what exactly do we mean in a business context? Because people hear values and they think, charity work or something.
Sure, it can be that, but in business, we are talking about alignment on the deepest existential questions of the company. Do you have the exact same work ethic?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Do you share the same long-term vision? Are you aligned on the exit strategy?
Oh, the exit strategy. That destroys so many partnerships.
It really does. Because if you want to build a sustainable generational lifestyle business that you run for 40 years and your co-founder wants to build a minimum viable product, blitz scale it, and sell it to Google in 36 months,
your company is going to tear itself apart at the seams.
instantly. You must share a moral compass regarding how you treat employees, how you handle customer data, how you approach debt. If those core values are perfectly aligned, you can implicitly trust that partner.
You can trust them to use their entirely different skill set to push the company forward in areas where you are completely out of your depth.
Exactly. When we look through the historical records of massive corporate successes, Apple is always the textbook example of this dynamic, right?
Yeah, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, they definitely didn't clone each other.
No, it is the definitive illustration of complementary skills rooted in a shared desire to completely revolutionize personal computing. Look at Wozniak. He was the quintessential technical visionary.
The ultimate hacker.
Right, he was a developer who could literally wire the future together on a breadboard. But if you read the accounts of those early homebrew computer club days, Wozniak had zero interest in commercialization.
None at all.
He had zero interest in negotiating global supply chains or building a brand. He just wanted to build an incredibly elegant, cool piece of hardware to show off to other engineers.
Right, so if you had two Wozniaks in that garage, Apple would have remained a highly respected but completely niche hobbyist kit.
Exactly. They would have sold a few hundred units through a mail-order catalog, and that would be it.
Wow.
But then you have Steve Jobs. Jobs was not a master engineer. He couldn't write complex code, and he certainly couldn't design a motherboard with Wozniak's efficiency.
But he had the other foot for the three-legged race.
He had mastery in entirely different domains: marketing, industrial design, supply chain leverage, and consumer psychology.
So if you had two Jobses in that garage, what happens?
If you had two Jobses, they would have drafted incredibly compelling marketing materials and beautiful typography for a computer that didn't actually exist.
That's hilarious. But it's true.
It is. Elevating Apple from a garage project to a global powerhouse required two entirely different brain trusts working in tandem, united by a shared vision of what a computer could mean to the average person.
Let's extrapolate this beyond just the technical co-founder dynamic, though, because a partner isn't always the person writing code next to you. Often, the most powerful partner in a startup is the person writing the check.
Yes, the investors.
Yeah, I want to dig into those venture capital postmortem reports we reviewed. What happens when the investor's values fundamentally misalign with the founder's values?
It's usually bloodbath.
I mean, specifically the structural tension between a venture capital model that demands hypergrowth versus a founder who maybe just wants sustainable profitability.
This is where understanding the mechanics of your partner's incentives becomes a matter of life and death for the company. We have to unpack the math behind a typical venture capital fund to see why this conflict happens.
Yeah, walk us through the math because I think a lot of people don't get this part.
A VC firm operates on what is called a power law distribution. So if a firm has a $100 million fund, they might invest in 100 different startups, giving them $1 million each.
Okay, 100 bets.
Right. Now, the partners at that firm fully understand and expect that 90 of those companies are going to go completely bankrupt, go to zero.
90% failure rate baked right into the model.
Leaked right in. Then another 9 might break even or provide a negligible return. Therefore, that one remaining company doesn't just need to be a moderate success.
It has to pay for all the losers.
Exactly. It needs to return the entire $100 million fund, plus profit. That one company must become a unicorn.
So the math itself forces a specific behavioral mandate on the investor.
Completely. The investor doesn't care if you build a nice, profitable $10 million a year business.
Because a $10 million business doesn't return a $100 million fund.
It's a rounding error to them. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a founder who took that VC money because, hey, the check was too big to ignore.
It's tempting.
Very. But your personal value is sustainable growth. You want to build a highly profitable, resilient company that grows organically by, say, 15% a year. You want to treat employees well and maintain high margins.
That sounds like a great, healthy business.
It is, until your lead investor, who now sits on your board, demands that you triple your growth rate within 6 months.
Because they need you to be the unicorn.
Right. They demand blitz scaling. They force you to spend millions of dollars on wildly unprofitable customer acquisition channels just to pump up your user numbers.
Just burning cash.
Exactly. They pressure you to hire 500 employees you don't actually need purely to justify a higher valuation for the next funding round.
Wow. So they're essentially forcing you to burn your own culture and your operational efficiency to the ground just to serve the mathematical reality of their power law distribution.
That is the ultimate shared values failure. The friction that creates will tear the company apart. The board will usually oust the founder for moving too slowly, or the company simply burns through its cash reserves and collapses under its own bloated weight.
That's terrifying, honestly.
It happens every day. This is why you have to audit your partners, whether they are co-founders, board members, or angel investors, with ruthless objectivity.
You really have to sit across the table and ask the hard questions.
Do we want to build the exact same house? Do we define success in the exact same way? If the answer is yes, great. Now, do we have completely different tools in our tool belts to actually get it built?
I love that analogy, and I want to pull on that thread of building the house, because having a perfectly aligned co-founder and an investor who shares your vision, that's incredible. But at the end of the day, that's just the architectural blueprint.
Right, you still have to build the thing.
To pour the concrete, frame the walls, put on the roof, you need an engine of execution. That means we have to look beyond the executive suite and dive into the bullpen.
The employees.
The team. And when we examine how the most profitable companies cultivate their team ecosystem, we run into this fascinating paradox.
The culture fit paradox.
Exactly. We're told we need to hire for cultural fit, but simultaneously the data screams that we need diversity of thought. So how do you balance fitting into a cohesive culture without accidentally engineering a total corporate echo chamber?
This is an incredibly important distinction to untangle, because the term cultural fit has been dangerously bastardized in modern corporate speak.
How so?
Well, for a lot of companies, cultural fit devolved into the airport test or the beer test.
Oh, right. Like, would I want to be stuck in an airport on a layover with this person?
Exactly. Which usually translates to, did this person go to the same university as me? Do they play the same sports? Do they look like me? And do they agree with my worldview?
So you're just hiring your friends again.
Right. When you hire based on that definition of cultural fit, you aren't building a culture. You are cloning your own biases.
So we need to strictly redefine what culture actually means in a profitable business context. It's really about mission alignment, not personality cloning.
Precisely. Let's say your company's core mission is to democratize financial literacy for underserved, lower-income communities.
Okay, good mission.
A true cultural fit is an employee who is deeply, intrinsically passionate about that specific mission. They care profoundly about the end user. Their work ethic aligns with the pace of your startup.
And that is where the alignment stops.
That is exactly where it stops. From there, you desperately need diversity of thought, which is how you actually achieve that mission.
So you don't want a team of 10 identical finance guys from Ivy League schools trying to solve a systemic problem for a demographic they have never interacted with.
No, that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
You want someone with a background in sociology. You want a hard data scientist who approaches problems mathematically. You want a creative designer who understands behavioral nudges.
And maybe an operations expert who actually grew up in the exact community you were trying to serve.
Exactly. You are assembling people with vastly different lived experiences and cognitive frameworks.
And the reason you want those different frameworks is because it intentionally creates friction. I mean, if everyone in the room looks at a product roadmap and immediately nods in agreement, you don't have a genius strategy. You just have a massive collective blind spot.
Yes, cognitive friction is the raw material of innovation.
I like that phrasing.
It's true.
Mm.
You want a boardroom where the data scientist says, I think we should optimize the app by doing X. And the sociologist pushes back and says, wait, looking at this from a behavioral perspective, doing X will alienate half our user base because it assumes they have consistent broadband access.
What do we design it for offline capability, like Y?
Exactly. That friction forces the team to test their assumptions. And the modern market data backs this up emphatically. Major global consulting firms have studied this extensively over the last decade.
And what did the numbers actually say?
The data consistently demonstrates that teams with diverse cognitive and background approaches out-innovate homogeneous teams. And crucially, they tie that diverse problem-solving directly to higher profitability margins.
Because they're spotting things the homogenous teams are completely blind to.
Diverse teams spot emerging market opportunities, and they identify catastrophic risks that homogeneous teams completely ignore because of groupthink.
Let's look at the negative space of this concept for a second. What happens when a company optimizes purely for raw technical skill, but completely ignores that mission alignment piece?
Oh, the psychological decay is real.
Yeah, I'm thinking about top performers. We see it all the time. A company hires a brilliant, 10x developer, but that developer couldn't care less about the actual product or the customer. Why does that inherently lead to burnout and turnover?
To understand that, we have to look at the clinical psychology of human motivation. There's a deeply researched framework called self-determination theory.
Okay, break that down for us.
It posits that human beings are driven by 3 innate psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Autonomy, competence, relatedness. Okay.
Relatedness, in a business context, is purpose. It is the connection to the why of the work. If you hire a technical genius purely for their resume, and they have zero alignment with your company's mission, they only have competence.
Right. They know they are incredibly good at writing code.
But without that purpose, their motivation is purely transactional. They're simply trading their keystrokes for a paycheck.
And transactional motivation works fine when the sun is shining and everything is easy.
Sure, when the code is compiling and it's a Tuesday afternoon.
But startups are inherently chaotic.
Exactly. When the work inevitably gets difficult, when there is a massive server outage at 2 in the morning, or when a major client threatens to terminate their contract and the product needs a complete overhaul over the weekend.
That transactional motivation instantly evaporates.
Poof, gone. The coder who doesn't care about the mission will look at the clock, calculate that they aren't being paid nearly enough for this level of stress, log off, and immediately update their resume.
I mean, mathematically, it makes sense for them to do that.
It does. Conversely, the team member who believes deeply in what the product actually does for the world, the person who is culturally aligned with the mission, will stay up until 4 in the morning fixing that database.
Not because a manager threatened them.
No, because their intrinsic motivation is tied to the outcome. They care if the product fails.
If we map this back to the broader ecosystem of the business, your team is basically the internal engine of your profitability. And if you want a high-performance engine, you need parts that perform completely different functions.
Right. Pistons, spark plugs, timing belts.
They don't look the same, they don't operate the same way, but they are all perfectly aligned toward the exact same mission, propelling the vehicle forward.
That is exactly how founders need to view their internal ecosystem. It's a machine built of diverse parts with a singular purpose.
But once you have that internal machine locked in, Your aligned partners at the top and your diverse, mission-driven team executing in the trenches, you can't just pull up the drawbridge.
No, a business cannot survive in a vacuum.
You have to interface with the broader marketplace, which requires a completely different set of relationships. Which brings us to a word that makes almost every entrepreneur I know instinctively cringe.
Let me guess. Networking.
Networking. I mean, traditional networking conjures up these terrible images of bad convention center coffee, forced small talk, and aggressively tossing business cards at people who will inevitably throw them in the trash on the way out.
It's the worst. Everyone hates it.
But the data we are looking at suggests we need to completely redefine this concept. It isn't just about client acquisition. It is about cultivating an intelligence-gathering and opportunity-generating ecosystem of peers, advisors, and remarkably, even competitors.
We have to completely discard the 1990s definition of networking. Modern strategic visibility is built on the psychology of reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
You have to stop viewing networking as an event you attend once a quarter and start viewing it as a continuous, daily practice of depositing value into your industry ecosystem without the expectation of an immediate one-to-one return.
Let's trace that out for the listener. Because if I am a stressed founder, I am wearing 14 different hats, I'm trying to manage my diverse team, I'm dealing with investors, my time is my most fiercely guarded asset.
Of course it is.
How do I give value to a broad network without allowing myself to be exploited or, wasting half my week?
It does not require massive time commitments. It is about micro actions of high value.
Oh, give me an example.
Okay, let's say you are reading an industry journal over your morning coffee, and you see an article about a looming disruption in global shipping logistics. You take 30 seconds to forward that link to a peer in an adjacent manufacturing sector with a quick note.
Like, hey, saw this, thought of the supply chain issue you mentioned last month, hope you're navigating it well.
Exactly, 30 seconds. Or say you are in a specialized Slack channel for SaaS founders, and a younger entrepreneur asks a panicked question about a specific payment gateway failing.
Oh, I've been there.
We all have. You take 5 minutes to write out how you solved that exact same problem 2 years ago, potentially saving them days of agony.
And you aren't asking them to buy anything. You aren't pitching your product. You are just being genuinely helpful.
Exactly. You are depositing goodwill into the ecosystem. The psychology of reciprocity is a deeply ingrained evolutionary trait in human beings. When someone helps us, we feel a profound subconscious drive to balance the ledger.
We want to pay them back.
We need to. By consistently performing these high-value microactions, you are building an army of allies. When you eventually run into a wall and need a warm introduction to a vendor or emergency advice on a legal issue, that network activates for you.
So helping a struggling peer today creates an invaluable, loyal ally tomorrow.
Precisely.
What I find truly counterintuitive, and we see this playing out brilliantly in certain industries, is the strategy of networking with your direct competitors.
Yes. This is a massive paradigm shift for most people.
I think the default setting for most founders is to view industry rivals as the absolute enemy. You build a massive moat, you don't speak to them, and your goal is to just crush them into dust.
Right. Total warfare.
But the research shows that is an outdated zero-sum way of thinking that actually leaves a massive amount of money on the table.
It is entirely zero-sum. The modern, highly profitable approach is coopetition, cooperative competition. Think about it logically. Who on earth understands the crushing daily pressure of your specific business better than your direct competitor?
Literally nobody.
Nobody. They are navigating the exact same regulatory hurdles, they are dealing with the exact same supply chain crunches, and they're trying to decode the exact same shifting consumer demands.
Wait, so how do you leverage that shared struggle without accidentally handing over your trade secrets or your client list? Like, where is the line?
You share resources and intelligence in areas that do not compromise your unique value proposition. Let's look at a real-world case study. The local craft brewing industry.
Oh, that's a great example.
Technically, every craft brewery in a 50-mile radius is competing for the exact same local beer drinker's dollar, right?
Yeah, they want you to buy their IPA, not the guy down the street's IPA.
But if you observe the operational reality of that industry, they are incredibly collaborative. If one brewery's expensive canning machine breaks down right before a major release, a direct competitor down the street will often let them run their cans on their line after hours.
That's amazing.
They pool their capital to buy raw materials like hops or aluminum in massive bulk quantities, which drives down the supply chain costs for both of them.
Oh, so they're actually increasing their margins by teaming up on the back end.
Exactly. They form coalitions to jointly lobby local city councils for better zoning laws or tax breaks that benefit the whole sector.
And by expanding the pie through co-opetition, they also lower their customer acquisition costs. Because we see this in the agency space too, right? Like design agencies or software development shops.
Oh, all the time.
The smartest competitors trade leads. If an agency gets pitched a client project that is simply too small for their current revenue model, or maybe requires a coding language outside their niche, they don't just send a cold rejection email.
No, that's a waste of a touch point.
They actively refer that client to a competitor who is a perfect fit.
And what happens 6 months later when that smaller competitor is approached by a massive enterprise client that they don't have the headcount to service?
They remember the reciprocity.
Exactly. They send that massive contract directly up to you. You just acquired a highly qualified, pre-warmed lead with zero marketing spend, all because you cultivated a relationship with an alleged enemy.
That is the power of an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And we are seeing this exact dynamic supercharged by modern digital platforms. The days of the hotel ballroom mixer are largely over.
Thank goodness.
Right. Today, strategic visibility happens in decentralized professional spaces. Invite-only Slack channels, exclusive Discord servers, specialized LinkedIn micro-communities.
And if you observe those spaces, the individuals who attract the highest tier business opportunities, the massive partnership deals, they are never the ones actively cold pitching their services in the general chat.
Oh, never. That guy usually gets muted.
Exactly. The people who win in those environments are the ones who combine visibility with extreme value. They're the ones consistently answering complex questions, sharing their own failures openly so that others can learn, and connecting people within the network.
They organically elevate themselves to the position of the go-to authority in that niche.
Yes. When you are the node through which valuable information flows, you don't have to chase opportunities. The opportunities actively hunt you down.
So a broad horizontal network provides this incredible lateral visibility. You have peers, you have competitors, you have industry contacts acting as an intelligence web. But eventually, horizontal visibility hits a limit.
It does.
When you are scaling a company, you will inevitably look at the road ahead and realize you have absolutely no idea what is over the horizon. You need vertical guidance.
You need someone who has already walked through the specific minefield you are currently standing in.
Which leads us to the necessity of the mentorship multiplier.
Mentorship is very often the defining catalyst that separates a business that plateaus at $1 million in revenue from a business that scales exponentially to $50 million.
It's that powerful.
It is. The fundamental problem every founder faces is a total loss of objectivity. By definition, you are too close to the blast zone of your own business.
You're in the weeds.
You are obsessed with the micro details. A mentor provides the essential outside perspective that you simply cannot generate using your own brain, no matter how intelligent you are.
I always visualize this as being stuck inside a massive, incredibly complex hedge maze.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so you, the founder, are running around on the ground. You are sweating, you are panicking, you are hitting dead ends, and your vision is strictly limited to the green leaves right in front of your nose.
You can't see the pattern.
Right. You are doing the grueling work, but you have zero perspective. The mentor is the person hovering in a helicopter looking down at the entire architecture of the maze.
That's perfect.
They aren't doing the running for you, but they can look through their radio and say, stop sprinting straight ahead. There is a brick wall 10 feet in front of you. Take a hard left, walk 50 paces, and you are out.
That is a brilliant visualization of the dynamic.
But the immediate practical question every founder asks is, how do I actually get someone to get in that helicopter for me? Because you can't just walk up to a highly successful Fortune 500 CEO at a conference and ask, will you be my mentor?
Please don't do that.
It feels like proposing marriage to a stranger on a first date. It's incredibly awkward, and it almost guarantees a rejection.
It absolutely guarantees a rejection. Because will you be my mentor implies an undefined, massive, and exhausting time commitment. Highly successful people guard their time ruthlessly.
So what's the play?
Well, before we outline exactly how to secure that relationship, we need to understand what the mentor is actually doing in that helicopter, because founders often misunderstand the role.
Okay, let's clarify that.
Mentors serve a vital dual function. The first is what people traditionally expect. wisdom and guidance. They help you avoid catastrophic million-dollar mistakes based on their own lived experience. But the second, and frankly the far more critical role, is accountability.
Let's expand on that accountability piece, because I think a lot of young entrepreneurs assume a mentor is essentially an experienced cheerleader, someone to validate their ideas and pat them on the back when things get hard.
A true mentor is the exact opposite of a cheerleader. A true mentor is the one person in your professional ecosystem who is willing to look you dead in the eye and tell you that your baby is ugly.
Ouch, but necessary.
Highly necessary. We have to acknowledge the intense isolation of the founder at the top of the org chart. As your company scales, the dynamic with your team changes. Your employees, no matter how much you preach radical candor, will eventually become hesitant to give you harsh, unvarnished feedback.
Because at the end of the day, you sign their paychecks.
Exactly. And your co-founders are down in the maze with you, suffering from the exact same lack of objectivity.
Right.
A mentor has absolutely no financial dependence on you. They do not care about protecting your ego. Their job is to ask the brutal, deeply uncomfortable questions that force you to confront your own denial.
Like what? What are they asking?
They're the ones who ask, why are you still pouring $50,000 a month into this marketing channel when the data clearly shows the customer acquisition cost is unsustainable? Or, why haven't you fired that toxic executive yet? What are you afraid of?
Oh, yeah.
They hold you accountable to the cold, hard reality of the market, not the optimistic fantasy you've built in your head.
Okay, so knowing that this unvarnished accountability is the ultimate prize, how does a founder actually initiate and secure this kind of relationship without using the dreaded M word?
You secure it through the exact same value exchange mechanics we discussed in networking, tailored for a highly asymmetric relationship. You do not ask for a lifelong commitment up front.
No marriage proposals.
No marriage proposals. You ask for a highly specific 10-minute transaction based on their documented expertise. You find an executive who has solved the exact problem you are facing, and you send a concise message.
What's the script?
I am currently struggling with scaling our international logistics. I know you mastered this transition during your tenure at Company X. Would you be willing to answer one highly specific question via email or a 5-minute call?
Make it incredibly low friction.
Exactly. If they agree, you ask the question, you respect their time, and you hang up. Then, and this is the critical step that 99% of founders fail to execute, you do the work.
You actually apply the advice.
You apply their advice. 30 days later, you report back. I implemented the exact logistics framework you suggested. It reduced our shipping delays by 20%. Thank you for your insight.
That follow-up is the magic bullet, isn't it? Because highly successful, wealthy people don't need your money. Their most valuable remaining currency is impact. They want to know that their hard-won wisdom is actually making a difference.
Exactly. When a mentor sees that you are a high-leverage investment, meaning they can give you 5 minutes of advice and you will actually execute it flawlessly, they become emotionally invested in your success.
They want to see how the story ends.
Yes, they will naturally start offering more time. The relationship evolves organically from a single question into a formal mentorship without you ever having to awkwardly propose to them.
We also need to explore the evolution of these relationships over the life cycle of a business, because the mentor you desperately need when you are working out of a garage is rarely the mentor you need when you are ringing the bell at a stock exchange.
That's a great point.
I would imagine that a mentor for a year-one startup requires a totally different psychological profile and skill set than a mentor for a year-5 company scaling for a private equity buyout.
You are entirely correct. And a common trap founders fall into is holding on to early mentors purely out of a sense of loyalty, long after the business has outgrown their specific expertise.
What does that look like in practice?
Let's look at year one. A year one mentor might be a local business owner who knows how to bootstrap a minimum viable product. They know how to hustle for your first 10 clients. They know how to stretch $1.
Scrappy.
Very scrappy. But fast forward to year 5. You are now managing 200 employees. You are trying to navigate complex international tax law. You are dealing with board governance. And you are preparing for a 9-figure acquisition.
That year-one mentor has never done any of that.
That scrappy year 1 mentor is now just as lost in the maze as you are. You need to consistently audit your operational bottlenecks and seek out new mentorship that aligns with your current and future growth stages.
We see this exact evolutionary dynamic when we look at the historical context of the most successful business titans in the world.
Oh, definitely.
Look at Mark Zuckerberg in the incredibly chaotic early days of Facebook. He was famously mentored by Steve Jobs. Jobs taught him how to build an executive management team. He taught him the importance of product aesthetics. He taught him how to navigate the crushing psychological pressure of being a 20-something CEO under the glare of the global media. Or, an even better example, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.
That is a phenomenal case study in high-level mentorship. When Bill Gates and Warren Buffett became close, Gates was already a global titan. He was the undisputed king of software.
Right, he was already a billionaire.
He certainly didn't need Buffett to mentor him on technology trends. What Buffett provided was high-level abstract mentorship that Gates lacked. He taught Gates the principles of long-term capital allocation.
The metagame.
The metagame, exactly. He mentored him on managed public perception and philanthropy. And perhaps most critically, Buffett taught Gates the ruthless discipline of calendar management.
Oh, the art of saying no.
The art of saying no to almost everything in order to preserve deep, unstructured thinking time. Gates, who was already wildly successful, leaned heavily on an older, vastly experienced sounding board to avoid the catastrophic mid-career pitfalls that derail so many executives.
So we've established that mentors push you forward, they hold you accountable, and they keep you out of the dead ends of the maze. But the reality of that process, the intense pressure of accountability, the burden of team management, the constant threat of market competition, it takes an unimaginably severe psychological toll on the founders.
This is brutal.
When the business day finally ends, when the laptop closes, who is keeping the entrepreneur from collapsing under the weight of it all? This brings us to a part of the ecosystem that is almost never discussed in business schools.
It's the most overlooked piece.
The invisible safety net of your personal circle.
We have to stop pretending that founders are emotionless robots. We must acknowledge a fundamental biological truth. Entrepreneurship is profoundly isolating and neurologically exhausting.
Well, it just drains you.
Completely. You are simultaneously carrying the weight of your employees' mortgages, your investors' capital expectations, and your own deeply entangled ego and identity.
That is a heavy backpack.
So the absolute necessity of a robust, supportive, personal network, your friends, your family, your spouse, cannot be overstated. They are the shock absorbers of your life.
Right.
They provide a safety net during catastrophic failures, and they help maintain your mental resilience against a constant barrage of negative variables.
I completely agree with the theory, but I have to bring up a very harsh, very common reality that I guarantee a lot of our listeners are navigating right now. I call it the crabs in a bucket mentality.
Oh yes, I know exactly what you mean.
If you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one crab tries to elevate itself and climb out, the other crabs will instinctively reach up and pull it back down into the mass.
Yeah.
What happens when your oldest friends, or even your immediate family members, are the ones actively projecting self-doubt and fear onto you? Like, why are you working so many weekends? You know, 90% of startups fail, right? Why don't you just get a safe, normal corporate job with benefits?
It's so discouraging to hear that from people you love.
Right. So when your personal circle is the source of the friction, is it a business imperative to ruthlessly cut off those pessimistic friends and family members?
This is undoubtedly one of the most painful, agonizing aspects of entrepreneurial growth. It hurts because it feels like a betrayal. But to manage it, we have to look at mental strength and resilience as a tangible, quantifiable business asset.
Treat it like capital.
Yes. Your mental energy is no different from your working capital, your intellectual property, or your supply chain logistics. If a vendor was constantly stealing money from your accounts, you would terminate the contract immediately.
In a heartbeat.
So if pessimistic personal influences are draining your resilience, if they are making you second-guess your boldest strategies every time you sit down for Sunday dinner, they are actively, mathematically, hurting your business's profitability.
But the psychology behind their behavior is fascinating, and I think understanding it helps founders cope. When you decide to build a business, you trigger what psychologists call status threat in your peer group.
Status threat. That's a great term.
Yeah, when you try to dramatically elevate your life and take a massive risk, it subconsciously forces your friends to evaluate their own lack of ambition or their own fear of failure.
It holds a mirror up to them.
Exactly. Your pursuit of greatness makes them intensely uncomfortable with their own complacency. They aren't consciously trying to destroy your business, they are subconsciously trying to pull you back down so they don't have to face their own reflection.
That is a brilliant psychological insight, and understanding that mechanism is the key to handling it. Because the answer isn't necessarily to dramatically cut off your family
Yeah.
or your childhood friends forever.
What's the alternative?
The answer is to establish rigorous, impenetrable emotional boundaries. You must compartmentalize. You can love your pessimistic brother. You can go to baseball games with your risk-averse childhood friend. But you completely revoke their access to your entrepreneurial inner life.
You just stop talking about the business with them.
Yes. You essentially demote them from the board of directors of your life down to the role of a casual social acquaintance. You stop using them as a sounding board for your vulnerable, half-formed business ideas because you know they will only provide toxic feedback.
Let's delve into those boundaries from the other direction, too, because on the flip side, you have supportive spouses or family members who genuinely want to help, but they have absolutely no context for the complexities of your business.
That's a different kind of danger.
How do you communicate your journey to the people you love so they can celebrate your massive wins without accidentally overwhelming them with your daily crushing stress? I know founders who go home every single night and vomit all their anxieties onto their spouse, and it eventually destroys the marriage.
It destroys the marriage because you are violating a core principle of emotional management. You have to deeply internalize that your spouse, your partner, or your best friend is not your therapist.
And they're certainly not your co-founder.
Exactly. If you come home on a Tuesday and say, we might miss payroll on Friday, our lead VC is threatening to pull the term sheet, and the prototype literally caught fire this afternoon, you are transferring a massive, toxic payload of anxiety to someone who has absolutely zero operational power to fix the problem.
They absorb all the sheer terror, but they have none of the agency to resolve it. They just have to sit there and panic with you.
Right. It's incredibly unfair to them. Therefore, your personal circle must remain fiercely non-transactional. You communicate the broad strokes of the journey. You absolutely let them share in the joy, the big wins, and the milestones. But you rely on your co-founders, your mentors, and your lateral peer networks for the tactical, granular stress dumping.
Because they actually understand the mechanics of the stress.
Exactly. Your personal circle is there to serve a completely different function. They are there to remind you that you are a multifaceted human being, not just a walking, talking LLC.
You need an escape hatch.
You desperately need friends who want to argue with you about movies or go hiking or talk about sports, friends who do not know or care what your quarterly revenue targets are. That non-transactional emotional support acts as a vital psychological circuit breaker for your brain.
And the current psychological data regarding founder burnout completely validates this approach. Studies tracking executive mental health show that entrepreneurs who maintain strong, non-transactional emotional support systems are significantly less likely to abandon their ventures during severe economic downturns or product failures.
The resilience is measurably higher.
And the mechanism behind that resilience is identity separation. If your entire self-worth and identity is 100% enmeshed with the success or failure of your company, a bad quarter doesn't just hurt your bank account, it destroys your ego.
It feels like a personal death.
It really does. But if you have a robust personal circle that loves you unconditionally, a bad quarter is just a bad quarter. You still have a solid floor beneath you. You don't free fall into clinical despair.
Right. You bounce back faster, you maintain your cognitive flexibility, and you return to the problem-solving phase much quicker, which, again, translates directly into a strategic financial advantage over a competitor who is spiraling into depression.
Okay, let's pull back and look at the massive, intricate architecture of the ecosystem we've built over the course of this deep dive.
It's quite a structure.
It is. You have your partners at the top, vetted for shared values and equipped with complementary skills. You have a diverse, mission-aligned team of employees, creating the cognitive friction necessary for innovation.
Right.
You have a broad horizontal network providing lateral intelligence and co-opetition opportunities. You have a vertical mentor providing unvarnished accountability and guidance out of the maze. And you have a fiercely protected personal circle providing emotional resilience and identity separation.
It is a beautiful machine when it works.
But there is one final, inescapable bottleneck that threatens to collapse the entire structure: time. Time is your only truly finite resource. You cannot possibly give 100% of your energy to all of these people simultaneously.
No, you'll burn out in a week.
You must ruthlessly curate. Which brings us to our final operational mandate, the quality over quantity audit.
Quality over quantity is the inviolable golden rule of relationship management in high-level business. You do not need a massive, unmanageable network of thousands of superficial contacts. You need deeply meaningful, high-leverage relationships, neatly organized within the 4 quadrants we've just identified.
Let's crystallize that ultimate relationship matrix one more time.
Okay, quadrant 1, partners. Their key contribution to your ecosystem is strategic alignment, shared values, and shared operational responsibility.
Check.
Quadrant 2, mentors. Their contribution is lived wisdom, vertical perspective, and brutal accountability.
Got it.
Quadrant 3, employees. Their contribution is execution, cognitive friction, and innovative problem solving. And quadrant 4, your personal circle. Their contribution is non-transactional emotional support, grounding, and mental resilience.
I want to suggest that our listeners pause and do what I call a Marie Kondo audit of their professional and personal life.
Oh, I love that. Does this contact spark joy?
Exactly, but does it spark growth? Literally open up your digital calendar and look back at the last 30 days. Look at every single meeting, every coffee date, every Zoom call, every networking dinner. Who is actually monopolizing your finite time?
People are usually shocked when they actually track this.
For every single person on that calendar, you need to ask yourself a hard question. Does this person spark growth? Are they adding tangible value to one of those 4 quadrants in my ecosystem? Whether that value is strategic, operational, or emotional, or are they just slowly draining my bandwidth?
That is a phenomenal, highly revealing exercise. And let me guide you through the practical application of what happens after you do that audit. Because you are inevitably going to find people who fall into the category of time vampires.
Oh, the time vampires. We all have them.
These are the peripheral contacts who constantly ask to take you to coffee to pick your brain, but they never actually execute on the advice you give them. Or they are the peers who spend an hour complaining about the macroeconomic environment and their own failing businesses, but never offer or accept actionable solutions.
They are emotional and temporal black holes.
They are. You have to respectfully but firmly distance yourself from them.
The immediate pushback from founders is always, how do I do that without sounding like an arrogant jerk? Because entrepreneurship is a small world, and you don't want to build a reputation as someone who thinks they are too good for everyone else.
You protect your time by systematically changing your default internal response from an automatic yes to a considered no. You don't have to be rude. You simply have to be consistently unavailable.
Give me the script for that.
You establish a polite script. Something like, I am in a deep, focused building phase with my team right now, and I cannot take on any outside meetings or calls for the next quarter, but I genuinely wish you the best with your project.
And that's it.
That's it. You reclaim those lost hours, and you immediately reinvest them into the high-quality relationships within your matrix. You take the hour you just saved from a time vampire, and you use it to have a deep, unhurried one-on-one lunch with your top-performing engineer to understand their long-term career goals and ensure they feel valued.
The ROI on that hour just skyrocketed.
Exactly.
We also need to address the very delicate concept of graduating from certain relationships as your business evolves and scales. We touched on this earlier regarding early-stage mentors, but the principle applies across the entire matrix. How do you successfully graduate from a relationship that was once vital but is no longer serving the ecosystem without burning the bridge entirely?
You manage that transition through absolute transparency and profound gratitude. If you have fundamentally outgrown a vendor, an early peer mastermind group, or a year-one advisor, you do not just slowly ghost them and stop returning their emails.
Yeah, that just breeds resentment.
It does. You initiate a direct conversation. You sit them down and say, your guidance and support were absolutely instrumental in getting us from our seed stage to where we are today. I am incredibly grateful for everything you contributed. We are now entering a completely new phase of scale that requires a different specific focus, so we are restructuring our advisory board.
It's respectful but definitive.
You actively celebrate what they did for you. You make them feel valued for their historical contribution, and then you cleanly move on. You leave the bridge perfectly intact, but you stop walking across it.
Let's make this architecture incredibly concrete for the listener before we wrap up. Walk us through a hypothetical weekly schedule of a highly successful, aggressively curated founder. How do they actually block out their finite hours to ensure all 4 quadrants of this ecosystem are being fed?
Let's map it out structurally. Monday mornings are sacred and entirely dedicated to the partner quadrant. You block out 2 uninterrupted hours for deep, strategic alignment with your co-founder or your core executive team.
So no Slack messages, no checking email.
Exactly. This is not the time for putting out tactical fires or reviewing marketing copy. This is strictly high-level course correction, financial modeling, and ensuring your shared values are still driving the ship.
Okay, what about Tuesday and Wednesday?
Tuesday and Wednesday are heavily tactically focused on the employee quadrant. You aren't micromanaging, but you are ensuring structured touch points with your key executing managers. You are actively listening to their friction points, and your primary job is unblocking their path so they can innovate and execute the mission.
You're clearing the road for them.
Precisely. Then Thursday afternoon, you block out one deliberate hour for the mentorship and networking quadrants. This is when you make that brief, high-leverage call to your mentor to report back on the logistics problem you solved. Or you spend 30 minutes in your industry Discord channel sending high-value resources to peers to trigger that reciprocity loop.
And what about the personal quadrant? How is that protected from the bleed of the business?
It must be fiercely ring-fenced. Friday evening through Sunday morning is a designated blackout zone. No casual business emails, no strategy sessions, no checking the analytics dashboard.
That sounds impossible for a lot of founders.
It feels impossible at first, but it's mandatory. This is your mandatory emotional resetting period. You are fully present with your family, your spouse, and your non-transactional friends. By aggressively and unapologetically structuring your calendar this way, you ensure that you are systematically feeding the entire ecosystem of your success without allowing any single quadrant to cannibalize the others and lead to burnout.
As we bring this all together, we've thoroughly mapped the architecture of a profitable ecosystem. We started by looking at how muddy and chaotic the water of entrepreneurship can be, and how incredibly easy it is to trip over your own feet if you tie yourself to the wrong partner with redundant skills.
It's the most common failure point.
But by intentionally curating these 4 specific groups, values-aligned partners, mission-driven and diverse employees, a reciprocal network with vertical mentors, and a protected personal circle, you clear those muddy waters. You assemble a living machine that is infinitely stronger, more resilient, and more profitable than any single founder could ever hope to be on their own.
And as we close this deep dive, I want to leave the listener with a flipped perspective. A final, slightly uncomfortable thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
We have spent this entire session analyzing how to find the exact right people for your circle, how to audit them, how to leverage their skills, how to ensure they are adding maximum value to your business ecosystem. But I want you to look in the mirror right now. Ask yourself this: which of those 4 categories are you currently filling for someone else in your network?
Oh, wow. That is the ultimate reality check.
It is. Are you actually acting as the visionary, values-aligned partner to your co-founder? Or are you dragging your feet? Are you the executing, mission-driven employee who brings diverse problem-solving to your CEO? Or are you just collecting a check?
Yeah, are you just phoning it in?
Right. Are you acting as the wise, ruthlessly accountable mentor to a younger entrepreneur who needs your help? Or are you the resilient, non-transactional friend to someone who is currently struggling under the crushing weight of their own business?
That's powerful.
You cannot possibly expect to curate an elite, highly profitable ecosystem of top-tier performers if you are not consistently bringing elite value to the table yourself. To attract the right people, you must first become the right person.
You get exactly what you project into the marketplace. If you want to read more, check out our blog at intothemargins.com/playbook. Thank you for joining us today, for challenging your own assumptions, and for deep diving into the data with us to uncover the real operational secrets to lasting profitability. Until next time, keep curating your circle and keep building.